So our journey begins in Haarlem, Netherlands. This is where we stayed rather than in Amsterdam. It's about a 15-minute train ride into Amsterdam from Haarlem. But this is inside the train station in Haarlem. You tap in. When you get to your destination, don't forget to tap out. Alright, here's our platform, Amsterdam Central, this way. Really cool train station. Old woodwork. And our train will be coming. Tap out. We are here. Amsterdam Central, their main train station. And we've come to Amsterdam to do an e-bike tour. And our journey starts at the train station.
Right next to the Amsterdam Central train station, we signed up to do an e-bike tour. And it's going to be about 6.5 hours, and we're going to go through the Dutch countryside, and we are going to stop here and here. Shining, but it is cold.
It is chilly. The wind is...
We're right by the water, so I don't know if that plays a part, but...
Yeah.
We're here early. We're waiting for them to open to get our e-bike. And this is going to be a group tour. We're not going on our own.
As it turned out, nobody else signed up to do the group tour with us, so group tour ended up being a private tour.
Chris, turn around and wave.
We're making our way out of the Amsterdam city center, and we are going to get on the ferry and go across the river to do a ride through the countryside.
We just made that one. Perfect timing.
I'm not like a regular vlogger or nothing,
Sure.
but
No, for vacation though, it's fun.
Yeah.
I agree. It's so
sometimes
cool.
videos are better than pictures.
I
you
think
know?
for the bike ride especially,
Yeah.
you get to actually see and feel
This is
the
it's
motion.
unique. We've never done something like this before.
Awesome.
It's always a venture with her.
So we've arrived on the other side of the river. Now we're all taking our bikes off the ferry. And if you didn't notice, Amsterdam is a pretty popular bike destination, a regular mode of transportation, all ages. So our tour guide's actually an American, and he's been in the Netherlands for 7 years. He's studying archaeology, and we're going to pull off to the side, and he's going to give us a brief history on Amsterdam.
What you guys are going to see today. It's a really unique landscape living here. The Dutch have had, obviously, to live around and deal with the water issues for over 1,000 years now. In Amsterdam alone, we've been around for about 800 years. If we stood on the banks here about 800 years ago, around the year 1200, you would have seen just a big, flat, swampy mess. Basically like Mississippi or the Louisiana Delta, you know? And the two rivers, the river that we just came across is the I River, that's IJ, used to meet up with the Amstel River right where the central station is now, and that's the central station in front of us. The people who lived here lived on wooden stilt houses, and they were fishermen mostly, and they just sailed around these local waters, and they tried to survive on little islands basically sticking out of the water here. And then of course every year the floodwaters would come and raise their homes. So of course people got pretty tired of having to rebuild, and they started to develop water infrastructure, which is what this country is most known for nowadays. First thing that they did is they put a big dam on the Amstel River. You guys probably walked across that if you stayed in town at all walking around. That's called Dam Square now.
Yeah,
Square.
yeah,
Yeah. So that gives the town its name initially. That's about 750 years ago. The next thing that they start doing is they build what's known as a dike. A dike is basically a big wall of earth that they pile up against the water and then build their homes behind it so that they can stay a bit more dry. And they did that just over where that big church is in front of us. That's called the Zeedijk. If you walk around the red light district area or some of the oldest parts of the city, you'll walk on the Zeedijk and you'll see that history in motion right there. The last thing that they did is they started creating these things known as polders. Polders, P-O-L-D-E-R is how it's spelled. Almost all the land in Amsterdam, Haarlem, this whole western part of the country that we're standing on right now is made up of these polders. It's basically small artificial islands taking the shape of like a big rectangle. And they dig out a canal around it on all four sides, and they pile up all the soil into the middle so it can raise just above sea level, because most of the country here lies below sea level. And that's what they started doing in Amsterdam about 800 years ago, and they can start building stone buildings on it. But one thing happens with this wet ground is the buildings start to tilt from one side to another.
Yeah,
and they
we
start
noticed
sinking.
that, yeah.
So you have to deal with that issue as well, everywhere, around the whole country. That's the biggest issue. In the countryside, they have some pretty ingenious solutions of how to deal with that as well, and we'll see some of that too. But of course, with all this water around, shipping, boats, that's the name of the game here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's how you gotta get around, that's how you're gonna get your money. This nice little image I have for you guys here is this same harbor about 400, 500 years ago. They called it a harbor forest because, as you can see, all you saw from miles away was the massive ships coming up out of the water. Most of the tallest things in town were the boats, and most of the activity here was right here in the harbor. This was Times Square, New Year's Eve, every day of the week, basically. Goods coming in from all over the world, being unloaded here, sent into the canals via more boats, and then being loaded into the houses from there. Everything I will talk about on this tour, I like to use the phrase form and function, because everything was designed for the shipping, for efficiency. That goes from the way the boats are designed, the windmills are designed, the canal system, like in Amsterdam, all the canals point here towards the harbor to maximize that efficiency, for example. And this led the Dutch to outcompete all their other European neighbors during this time in the 1600s and the 1700s, when everybody was exploring around the world, finding new places, and trying to make themselves incredibly wealthy. That's what the Amsterdammers here did too. They went to Indonesia, they went to India, they went to Brazil, they went to a place called New York, and they called it New Amsterdam, and they brought back anything of value, and they brought it here, making the people really, really wealthy in the process. Of course, with all that money, they started to exert more power and influence on the countryside, and we're going to see how they connected the countryside back to Amsterdam to make them even more money. For example, all the farms, all the villages, all the windmills that we're going to pass are connected with this little canal we're going to bike up in a moment, the Balkslautervaart Canal. That was hand dug in the 1650s, again, to connect the entire province here back to the city. Efficiency, right? And so the Dutch were really able to get around. They were really able to outcompete their neighbors. If you guys saw it before we left the bike shop, there's like an old ship kind of off in the distance there that they actually made a replica of, a big sailing ship, right? Like a little pirate boat you can think of in your mind. And this ship is called the Amsterdam, and it's parked in front of the Maritime Museum now. They built this ship in the 1980s using original methods and original materials. Now, back in the day, they could build a ship every 3 months, ready to go out to sea. How long do you think it took them to build that ship?
Wow, 3 years.
About 3 years. 2 years.
Okay.
So
You
that
got
just
lucky on
I
that.
that goes to show you just how efficient they
Yeah,
were, how much
yeah.
they were the masters of the water. And that led them, again, to send more boats out from harbors of the Netherlands compared to all the other European countries. For example, here in the Netherlands, we sent out about 4,700 ships between 1600 and 1800. In that same 200-year period, all of the rest of Europe combined sent out about half as much, 2,500 ships. So again, just going to show you how much the water meant to the people here, how important the source was of this water, and how they used it to make their money, especially. Because it's not religion here, it's not politics, it's all about the money, baby. You know,
Sure,
that's
yeah.
what they wanted. And so that's it for now, guys. I'll have more to say when we get back into town. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything tour related, not
Okay.
tour related,
Mhm.
Amsterdam related, not Amsterdam related. I'm an open book, guys. So
All right.
whatever you want to know, I'm happy to tell you.
I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
So just sit back, relax, and enjoy some brief snippets of the countryside. Oh, look, we're coming up on a windmill, Chris. You see the wings of the windmill up here? Up here on your left.
Hey, you got a good eye, Christy.
Yeah?
We're going to come to a stop right next to it. No, we're still in Amsterdam here.
Oh, okay.
No, we're going to bike for about 2 hours before we before we get to
Oh,
the
wow.
village. We'll make stops along the way, of course, but yeah, this is just one windmill. Where you guys are going, there's at least a dozen or 15 of them.
1792.
Yeah.
Is that how old this is?
Absolutely. Almost
Wow.
the country that we're in, the USA.
Wow.
So guys, yeah, we are still in Amsterdam. We're just on the outskirts of the city here in Amsterdam Noord. Amsterdam Noord was incorporated into the city in the Middle Ages, all the way back then. Mostly because old Amsterdam, where we just came from, was starting to stink, you know, with all that water around. They needed a bit more areas to raise some food, to grow some animals. Of course, to also connect to the local villages like I was talking about here. You could think of Amsterdam's growth as just like a series of small towns and villages being consumed into one another, and that's Amsterdam Noord as well. It feels like a bunch of different villages loosely connected together. And this, what we're standing next to here, is known as the Kruitmolen de Admiral, or in English, the chalk mill of the Admiral. And there, as you notice here at the top, all the windmills that we'll see today, they'll have their date of construction just underneath the front blades there. So this one, as you can see, was dated to 1792. Meaning windmills still within Amsterdam city limits. Even about 120 years ago, there was over 1,000 different windmills in Amsterdam, just in Amsterdam alone.
Wow.
Across the whole of the Netherlands, about 10,000 different windmills. This technology, they started to develop it more in the 1400s, and they really perfected it here in this country. Like I said, with all this wind and all this flat land, it makes for the perfect source of energy, right? Free renewable energy. And they use these mills for different purposes. Some of them are used to create different products, different industrial goods. They saw wood, they make different dyes or paints. Maybe they grind grain for a baker, right? This one is a chalk mill, so it grinds down minerals and pulverizes rocks into chalk, right? What was that used for historically? It was actually used as part of the cement mixture holding the buildings up in Amsterdam.
Okay.
So we know who to blame for the shoddy craftsmanship, right? But other windmills do other jobs in this country. Some of them, like we'll see later, are water pumps. They're literally used to pump the water out and keep the land dry, right? And others still are used just for fun, you know, just for people's enjoyment as cultural heritage objects.
Yeah.
A lot of them date back at least 200, 300, 400, 500 years old, some of them. Still preserved pretty well. Almost all wood. And I'll tell you how they work if you're not a little bit, if you know a little bit about them, but you'll learn a lot today. They're even getting this one started. This is perfect here for you guys.
Woohoo!
So we'll see many more moving today. But as you can see, the wind is slowly, right now, turning the blades. What's happening inside is the important part. Inside, it's connected to a series of different wooden gear drives, right, that turn on each other like this. And there's a big wooden pole, like a big oak beam, running vertically throughout the center of the building there. As the wind is turning those different gears, it's spinning that plank of wood. And then on the ground floor where we stand here, you have 3 big stone wheels, like the one that you're standing next to, Chris. 2 of them are running on their sides, just like this one's positioned. And they're sitting on top of a 3rd stone that's flat. And it's got a groove cut into it. That way they can run around each other, and they throw in minerals, and it just starts pulverizing the minerals. So basically, the faster you get that windmill spinning, the faster it's going to turn those stones, the more chalk you could create, the more you can pulverize. And then they would send that chalk, they'd take it out of the doors, they put it onto a barge, and the barge would go straight back to Amsterdam. Efficiency, right? Form and function for everything. Even to this day, some of the new buildings that you see being constructed are still using some of this chalk from this windmill. But more so now, the farmers from the countryside, they come in and they use this chalk to adjust the pH balance, the acidity of their soils, for instance. So still in use, as you can see, the guy was just up on the little balcony here, he's adjusting the sails. Each of the different wooden blades there has its own canvas sail to help it go even faster when they need it. So one thing, like I said, form and function, the Dutch were really good sailors. And they put that sailing knowledge into their windmills to make them work even better. So you notice the blades are not totally flat. They're a bit concave. That's to mimic the sails of a sailing ship. And especially when the sail is open, it's going to really get it turning much faster as well. The other thing that they did is on the back of the windmill. And maybe we'll see this guy doing it, I'm not sure. They can actually turn the windmill 360 degrees around, so they can always face the wind no matter which direction it's coming from.
Wow.
So no days off, right? And then of course, if you need to stop the windmill, they have a braking system as well. That's on the back of the windmill. It's basically just this big wooden rope. They pull on that wooden rope, and it's going to set these blocks inside the windmill to push it into the blades, so the blades stop turning almost instantaneously. It might be going 60, 70 miles an hour, and then on a dime, it'll stop if they pull that rope. And that's connected to, again, a big steering wheel, just like you'd find on a captain's port out on a sailing ship, for instance. So they took what they knew and they used it to adapt into this environment as well.
And what's on the side there? It looks like wheat or something.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, this is what's known as thatch. It's basically, if you see across the water here, all these different, what do you call it, reeds, right, growing on the water. They take that, they dry it out, and then they can weave it together into this nice roof. The benefit of that is it's very lightweight, right? Like I said, in Amsterdam, all the buildings want to sink, especially if you build it right next to the water, right?
Yeah.
So in the countryside, they have to have some different solutions here. In the bottom, you notice just a little bit of foundation of brick, right? And then the rest of the windmill all the way up is made of very lightweight materials, just wood and thatch for the most part. And this helps keep the weight down, because if your windmill starts to tilt, well, you don't have a windmill very long, right? The other thing that this helps with is, like you said, tornadoes or big weather storms. Sometimes the wind will whip here 100 plus miles an hour. If you have the windmill going while that's happening, you risk the whole structure also falling apart, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially if it's built of stone.
It'll rip it apart.
But if you build it out of thatch, if you build it out of wood, out of flexible materials, then the windmill almost kind of dances with the wind. It moves with it, rather than just being so sturdy and stationary and toppling over instead.
Okay.
So it took them years to figure this out. So this guy is doing some repairs, it looks like. He's not pulling down the blades to open up the sails, but I saw that he's adjusting the shape of them. So he's trying to angle it in the best way possible to get the wind later today, which I think is coming from the south. So he's trying to kind of angle it in a way that he can pick up the most wind possible. Now this windmill has a nice history, a nice legend, sort of a urban local legend, you could tell it. And as well, also like its real history. But I'll start with the legend because it's a bit more fun, right? The windmills in this country are named either after the person who built it, the thing that it makes, or the place it's located in. This one has a bit of a combo. It's part of the first two categories. So the chalk mill of the Admiral, we know it makes chalk, but who's this Admiral person, right? There was a woman in the next village over called Elizabeth de Admiral, and she was a very wealthy woman. She came from a family of brewers. They made beer. And of course, the beer was healthier to drink than water back then, so they got very rich, right? Of course, she got married, and the husband loved her very much because probably the money, let's be honest. So he wants to make her a little Dutch Taj Mahal, right? A little memorial to her. So he builds her a windmill, of course. But there's a little problem with that story, is that the husband had been dead for 30 years when this windmill was constructed. So, a little difficult for him to have been the one to build it, right? Classic story, men taking credit for their wives' work. The history books wrote down that he did it, but in fact it was Elizabeth who had the land purchased, had the windmill constructed, and then actually operated the windmill up until the last years of her life. The windmill opened in 1792. About 2 years later, she passed away at the age of 93 years old.
Oh, wow.
Pretty impressive back then. Hard work makes you live longer, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then it stayed in the family's hands for a few generations. Yeah, look at this thing go. Then it stayed in the family's hands for a few generations, and eventually they sold off the mill around the turn of the 20th century, and it fell on some hard times. We have photos of it where the thatch roof is kind of caved in spots, and usually they repair this roof every, say, 25 or 30 years. So we know that it had been neglected for quite some time at that point. But in the 1960s, after World War II, there was a lot of emphasis on preserving these windmills because there were not that many left at that point. So a lot of volunteer organizations sprung up. This one was saved in 1960, and by 1967 it was operational again. And as you can see, pretty operating pretty well, right? The guy up there is a volunteer. They usually live in the houses around the windmill here. And on a day like today, Sunday afternoon especially, they'll get the windmill operating for people, for the public to enjoy. Still creates chalk, like I said, but once a year they also do something else. They actually grind down hops, and they make beer as well, sort of as a memorial to honor Elizabeth and her original legacy as a brewer. and then they turn that craft brew around and they sell it to the public to help raise proceeds for the mill. So it's a nice little charity.
If you think I'm gonna make you a windmill,
That's true love letter, right? That's a Dutch love letter. You build your wife a windmill.
Yeah.
yeah.
We came upon another windmill where the miller that actually works and lives at this windmill gave us an amazing tour and explanation.
Planning for 3 or 4 months, and I do nothing with the windmill. You cannot stay here. You can only swim here. So it's really necessary to bring out the rainwater.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that with this big screw. It brings out 60,000 liters in 1 minute. It's a big one, I show you later. But you can see it in person and you can see the screw. When the blades are turning, this axle in the middle is turning and let the screw turns, of course. But around that axle you can live like a normal house.
Yeah.
Kitchen and living room on the ground level, 1 level high in bedroom. There's a bathroom too, another level. And you see another level. And on this level I stay there nearly every morning and turn this wheel. Then I ask you, what do you think what happens when I turn that wheel?
Is it gear? Is it? It helps it
You
go
turn in
faster?
the blades.
No, nothing with the blade.
Oh,
No,
I think
tell
she
you.
got it.
Huh?
Say it again, Christy.
It turns the blades.
It turns the blade. It let it turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It turned the whole top of the mill with the blades in the direction of the wind.
Oh, the 360 turn?
Yeah.
The 360 turn. Gotcha.
Because nearly every day the wind is coming from the other side.
Yeah, okay.
Well, how do you know which way the wind's going to turn? Like
What
when-
direction it's going to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do this.
Yeah. I look at the sky and say, oh wow. And then I look at my app on my mobile. Okay, come with me.
Yeah, back in the day you did that. Nowadays we have the technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go like that.
Yeah. And the classic weather vane as well. So you guys said you live on about 4 acres? each?
Yeah.
He
Uh-huh.
lives on about 1.5 acres here.
Oh, this is? Okay.
Oh, wow. That is.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can understand that this screw of Archimedes can bring out 60,000 liters in 1 minute. It brings it 1.5 meter up, push it over the dam. And the screw is made of iron, it's now about 150 years old. But before that it was made of wood, you can see it here, wooden screw. And before that the watermill had a water wheel. But the system is the same, and you can see it here. When the blades are turning, the axle's turning, the screw is turning, brings the water up, push the water over the dam, push this door open, brings the water out. And when the windmill stops, this door closes by himself and the water cannot go back. Really simple system that already works for 500 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
But listen to it going, buddy. Now it's.
Yeah.
And then he's not pumping it now, guys, because the The water level is good.
Yeah.
But last week he was doing it, and I took a little video. So they're in the same place that we are now, and it's turning. It's a little maybe hard to see, but you can see it's spinning out, and it sounds like a river underneath this house as well. When
Yeah.
It's really pumping fast.
That is. That's the coolest.
Yeah.
I tell you first something about the area around the windmill. I don't like big trees. Can you understand why?
Oh, I do. I do.
Why?
I cut trees for a living. I know. Because they blow down.
They fall down.
They fall down. And
They fall
blow-
down.
Yeah, they
but that's
fall.
not for me the reason. Why I don't like? I'm a miller. I don't like big trees.
Uh-huh.
Why? When there are many big trees near the windmill, then I don't have wind then.
They're blocking
No,
the wind.
blocking
Yeah,
the
they
wind.
block the
Gosh,
wind.
yeah, that makes sense.
So when you look around now, you see the big trees about 300 meters away from here.
Yeah.
And in the circle around, the inside area, there are no big trees.
Right, right.
So from all the sides, the windmill has good wind. So I'm a happy miller. But the land here is soft and wet, and every tree wants to grow. But you don't see the trees because, look at them. You have a group of goats. And they like to eat the little trees.
Yeah.
They like the goats, but at first they are functional first.
Mm-hmm.
We have some islands here. And you can see there are little bridges. And I make more bridges, other places, and they can walk around the whole year, try to find the little trees and eat them. So goats happy, miller happy. Yeah. It's like the brake of an autocar.
And it stops the windmill.
Yeah, check that out.
Look at that. That is something neat.
About 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You see,
How often do you see that in your life?
Right.
I've never. Yeah. This is
Well,
like.
for me now, once
Yeah.
a week. But
This is a once in a life experience.
really? Okay.
Yeah. I've never. Yeah.
I don't have things like this in the U.S. More
Yeah.
No,
No.
that's true. That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's normal.
Every day.
Every day, more times a day. Yeah. Okay. The brake is working. We can go to the blade now. It's safe. Let's go.
Notice he has to have 2 front doors for his house because the windmill might be blocking it every once in a while.
1974.
1974, date that he is replaced. Another date, 5041. That's the build date.
Uh huh.
Yeah. Okay. End of the day, I stop the windmill and I take the sails away. Because when the wind is changing at night, it's risky for the windmill, for the blade, for the sails. It's the same like a sailing boat going into the harbor. Take the sails away too. I do it too. I show you how.
He's showing off for you guys.
He loves his windmills.
You see, simple.
Easy
Yeah.
enough.
Makes it
Wow.
look easy.
Yeah.
So efficient.
Then I go backwards, use the brake, next one coming down, and so end of the day I take 4 sails away.
That is cool.
And in the morning I bring them in full.
see you have a staff there.
Sorry.
A staff.
Yeah. Because these things, many years ago, it was made of wood. Now they are iron, and that's much better. You can understand. And these little ropes must behind this here, everywhere. So I have to climb in.
That's the ladder in his house, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. You can go up to the top floor a lot faster.
Yeah.
That's if he
Hij
loses.
klimt omhoog, want hij moet het even goed doen het zeil.
He do that if he loses a key. You can't get inside.
Nou, een beetje. Je moet wel goed oppassen en goed klimmen.
He's a spider monkey.
Yes.
Spry for his age.
En dan gaat hij pas klimmen. Nu moet hij het touw goed doen en het zeil. Ja, hij is zo knap. Klimmen. Denk hoe het moet. Ja, hij was net aan het draaien ook. Het is een goede dag voor om te draaien. Dan kun je dus binnen en ook kijken en lezen hoeveel water die wel kan vertalen. Hij heeft een beetje verjaardag.
So a lot of times he has school groups around as well, and he shows
Okay.
the kids,
How
how
working
this works.
windmill.
There's not a lot of people, young people doing this job anymore. He said it's about a 2-year course to learn how to become a miller, and now most of the millers are, approaching retirement, so they're trying to inspire younger generations as well.
Well, they need to set up a school.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, do you have any other
That's
questions
great.
for Marcel
That's
before
awesome.
we, before we
I
take off
appreciate
again?
your time to do this
Yes,
for us.
yes,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I wish you a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Amsterdammers, I told you, were very wealthy, and they were indebted to the people here for saving them. So what they started doing is patronizing and building all the windmills that you see. This is just a small handful of what remains. There used to be about 500 windmills, both sides of the riverbanks, all the way down back. Them were timber mills, and I told you guys back in Amsterdam, they could build a boat start to finish every 3 months, right?
Yeah.
These windmills are the reason why, because each windmill was responsible to make one piece of the same piece over and over and over, right? And then each windmill made a different piece of the boat, and they would put all those pieces together onto a barge and ship it down to Amsterdam for assembly. So what you're basically dealing with is an IKEA kit, right? Build a boat, right? So all these were making the process so much faster. And now you still have them working, making these timber mills. Really get to see the sawmill inside. You can still visit all of these mills. Usually they have an entrance fee of about 5 to 7 euros. So my advice, guys, just pick one.
Yeah.
You get to see the inside of one, then you know what they all look like. So the timber mills are at the far end. My personal favorite mill here is this one, the closest one spinning with the small balcony that you can get up onto.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
called Windmill de Cat, and it's really unique because it's the last remaining pigment mill in the Netherlands. So what that means is they make paints there, different colors of paint, grinding down different minerals and stuff like that. And you can imagine painters like Vermeer or Rembrandt, if you went to the Rijksmuseum, right? They would source their pigments at mills like this and then turn around and paint them too. So it's a really cool experience that you can connect to if you saw any of the art at those places as well. And then the rest of the village is all like a living history, breathing village. So all the different craft industries you can still see. If you guys wanted to try some of that dairy cheese I was talking about, this red roof barn to my right here is the dairy farm. It is going to be very busy because a lot of the tour groups go there though.
Yeah.
The other place I can recommend is the Clog factory because you want to see how
Yeah,
they make the wooden
yeah.
shoes, that one is very cool as well. And you can go in there and tour that around as well. But basically all the buildings are different small little museums that you can go in
Okay.
and visit.
All right.
And on a nice day like today, just a nice walk down the dike by the water's edge, see all the windmills, pick your favorite. That's what I would
Okay.
recommend.
All right. Thank you.
So as we go into the village, guys, I'll just point out where the bathrooms are too. And where the restaurant is, that I'll be sitting at, okay?
I don't do well with crowds.
Okay, fair enough. I will warn you that it does tend to get a little busy on some of these
I
paths.
figured it's the weekend.
If
so-
you want, let's say the quieter route through the village, you want to go around to the left side of behind that building. There's a much quieter path.
Okay, where's the two big yellow wooden clogs?
Yes, man, you really did your research. They're right out here.
Oh,
in
I
front
see
of
it
the
right
Clog.
there,
So that's
yeah.
the Clog Museum there.
Yeah.
And then there's just to the left of it, behind this little alleyway here, is this pancake house called the Cry.
Uh-huh.
That's where I usually sit and have lunch, guys.
Okay.
Really nice pancakes. If you come too, you'll get 10% off. But there's other food as well if you want to walk around instead.
Okay. Yeah.
How about that?
The husband has to make a really nice
No, yeah, you have to ask now Benjamin has what, 6 weeks.
Oh, that's here. So it takes like weeks to make the I understand. Like, this is the.
¿Sí?
¿Es lo que dice?
Ok.
Gonzalo.
Clogs worldwide. Extraordinary clogs. Here we are. Factory. Wooden tulips. Zaanse Schans. Going through.
Nowadays. So to start off with the type of wood that we either use poplar or willow, and this right here is a piece of poplar. We use it when it's fresh and wet, and that makes it very easy to work with. So traditionally, these wooden shoes were made by hand. For the outside, they used a large knife to shape it like this, and for the inside, they used several sizes of these spoon screws to hollow it out like this. That was a very tough job to do. By hand it would take about 2 to 3 hours, but with these machines it only takes 5 minutes. So this first machine will make the outside of the wooden shoe. and it has the same system as duplicating keys. So we make a copy of the log. And there we have the rough outside. So now for the inside, we use the same system. Again, we make a copy of the log. And there we have the rough inside. So these last two pieces are still cut off by hand using this big knife. And there we have the rough shape of the wooden shoe. It's not finished yet because the wood is still very wet. Let me show you. It's not mine. So right now the shoe needs to dry for 4 weeks, and after drying we polish it on a sandpaper belt. The final result is then a wooden shoe for a child of about 4 years old. That might look big, but that's wrong. The best way to wear them is with thick woolen socks and 1 finger extra space at the heel. So a couple of reasons why we still wear these wooden shoes today. First of all, they are very strong. They are officially approved safety shoes, but they're also waterproof and insulated, so they keep your feet safe, warm and dry. So that was my story on how wooden shoes are made. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.
Ja, porque estoy en
Tourist destination.
Crowds. Everywhere you go. Food. Well, let's go take a photo in front of a windmill.
Definitely a busy place. This is Sunday. They're packed here.
Look at him. He's working the windmill, Chris.
Let me get.
So our time at Zaanse Schans was limited. We only had an hour and a half, and as you could see, it was very, very crowded. There was a lot more else you could do there, but the important thing to me was I wanted to see the wood clogging workshop. But if you plan on going, I would plan on staying the whole day. 'Cause like I said, there's a lot to see and do between the windmills, cheese, wood clogs. But we're headed on to Zaandam, our last stop on this e-bike tour. Straight ahead, right down. The green building up
ahead. Welcome here, guys, to yet another damn town on this tour. I know I have to make the joke.
Amsterdam, Zaandam.
We got all the dams. And this one is very much tied back with Amsterdam. They're two sister cities, you could call them, because they're so close together. Zaandam, if we took the train that we just came over the train station, like I said, we'd be back in Amsterdam Central in about 10 minutes or less. It's even closer than Haarlem is.
Okay, wow.
Haarlem, Zaandam, and Amsterdam sort of make this triangle that they've always been kind of interconnected when it comes to business, especially. For the map here, guys, you can kind of see a little bit of where we've been today. Where this woman's pointing with Zaanse Schans, where you guys just came from. The upper right-hand corner of the map is all the fields that we were biking around this morning. In the very top right-hand corner, you can see Marcel's Windmill that we stopped at. And if we extended the map slightly, you'd see Amsterdam again as well.
Okay.
And back in the past, the whole waterway there used to be full of windmills and warehouses, like I said, contributing to the port economy of Amsterdam. Nowadays, the economy has switched a little bit. A lot of big business corporate headquarters actually like Zaandam more than they like Amsterdam, because the corporate taxes are a lot lower here, you know? Yeah. So behind me, you have the big banking company, Robidus. And the big headquarters of the big grocery store chain Albert Heijn are also found here. They're the biggest grocery store chain in the country. And then I also mentioned on the bike ride over all the chocolate, right? So the chocolate manufacturing is where Zaandam really got its foundations from in the last 100 years or so. Chocolate manufacturers started with Verkade, is the first brand that came here. Very, very Dutch brand, similar to Belgian chocolate. The chocolate making is very similar. And we actually passed their facilities on the way into town. But nowadays there's like 5 or 6 major chocolate manufacturers. The most famous one globally is now called Tony Chocolonely, if you guys have ever heard of them.
Yeah, I have.
Maybe. They got a shout out on, what was the show? John Oliver's Last Week Tonight a few years ago for being one of the more ethical and sustainable chocolate manufacturers in the world. And years ago, they actually had petitioned the town council here to make their own sort of Hershey's amusement park out of the city. The city council denied them the space, but instead what they decided to do was this other urban renewal that you guys see around you now. And the Inn Hotel, the building just behind me here, is the real crown jewel of that urban renewal. So we'll get a better view of it as we come down the hill, but what you guys can see is that the hotel is constructed out of old housing blocks, old facades of houses. Unfortunately, during the renewal, they had to destroy several canal homes, but they wanted to preserve what was left of them. And so what they did is they took all the different facades, the exterior walls of those houses, and they stitched them back together like a quilt. So it won these awards for both like sustainable architecture, historic preservation, but also sort of modern inventiveness, creativity, because they were able to mix the old with the new so well. Nowadays, it's this really popular hotel. It's got a nice spa attached to it, but in terms of staying outside of Amsterdam, it's a bit overpriced, I will say that. But a very cool property nonetheless, yeah. The rest of the town, as you can see, has also been inspired by the city's history. A lot of the gables, as they're known, the top of the buildings, yeah? They're taking inspiration from local architectural styles. And then if you guys are noticing a bit of a pattern here, right? The green. Yeah. A lot of green here in this town. There's a reason for that too. Like I've been saying on this whole tour, form and function, right? Everything has a purpose. Even the color scheme. Hundreds of years ago, people painted their houses all kinds of different colors here, but they noticed something. Every time that they used the green paint, their house stayed fresher longer. They didn't have rotten wood. They didn't have to repaint the house so frequently. And they realized over time that it was because their paint was being mixed with a lot of copper in it. And it was giving it that green color, but it was also weatherproofing the side of their houses. So they all decided to save a buck, because again, money is the name of the game here. And they all started painting their homes green so that it would stay fresher longer, basically. And then everybody else caught on. So the whole town started being painted green. When they did this urban renewal, they wanted to take inspiration from that old history. So now even the new buildings get this sort of green color scheme here. Even the houses of local residents have this color scheme as well, but I don't think you get to pick your own color. I think they choose it for you now. So you either get the dark green, sort of the mint green, and then there's one other one that we'll see later on that's more like a Shrek slime green, if you ask me. That's not the one that you want for your house. Yeah. In our next stop, guys, I'll tell you about some famous residents who stayed in Zaandam over the years. But what I recommend now, so you guys can get some nice photos of the hotel if you want, is that we'll slowly bring our bikes down the bike path here. We'll just park them at the bottom of the hotel. We'll make a quick stop. And get 1971, Zaandam, first place to ever have a McDonald's. It's not your OG location, but this marks the spot here where they originally had it. And that's our American heritage, you know? That's why you guys come and travel halfway across the world, right? To see a McDonald's.
Eat at McDonald's.
All right, guys, shall we continue on here?
Yeah.
What? This is neat. It's almost like a theme park or something.
A little bit. Like, the waterfall is super cool. So they can just recycle the water from the canal and bring it uphill. They can do whatever they want with it, really.
And you get
some local history to you guys here, specifically some local famous figures from history that stayed in Zaandam over the years. The first one I'll talk about is Tsar Peter the Great, Tsar Peter the First, or Tsar Peter the Great of Russia.
Yeah, his house is here or something.
His house is just around this corner, but it's only pedestrian accessible, so we can't take our bikes there.
Oh.
But definitely worth a visit for a couple of reasons. Tsar Peter stayed here a whole whopping total of 8 days in 1697. Yeah, believe it or not.
And they still harp on it.
And they still harp on it. In fact, we just came around the Tsar Peter Straat, the Tsarina Straat, named after his wife. And then there's several other streets named after other diplomats that came with him from Russia. And they're named in both Dutch and in Russian in this town to honor that sort of history that happened here. He came here to learn about the Dutch water management and the Dutch shipbuilding that I already told you guys about today, because he wanted to go back and build a certain city in Russia that was named after him eventually, St. Petersburg, also very famously built on a swamp. So he came here to learn how the Dutch managed all the water, how they build their boats, so he could take that knowledge back to Russia with him. Of course, Tsar Peter was about 7 feet tall, and he had a giant crown of jewels on his head.
Really?
So you could say he stood out a little bit in this town. That's why he left after 8 days. He moved to Amsterdam and he started wearing a disguise to be a bit more anonymous. And he stayed in about 7 more months in Amsterdam after that. So a little longer. I guess he liked the big city, you know. Nowadays, this house that he stayed in is a museum to the public about the local culture and history of this region. But it's also famous for another reason, completely unrelated to Tsar Peter. It's one of the oldest timber houses, so wooden houses, still standing in the Netherlands. So it survived all the floods, all the fires, ever since 1632 it was originally built. 400 plus years old, right? And this house was so famous even about 200 years ago, both because Tsar Peter had stayed there and because it was this old wooden building, that the local townspeople in 1823 decided they would protect this house by building a stone house around the wooden house. Nowadays, they're both listed as separate national monuments. Don't ask me why. Together, they make up this museum complex, though. So it's a very cool place to visit if you guys happen to come back to Zaandam for a more walk around to see the hotel again, maybe. And the other person I want to bring up left a little more of an impression on town. He stayed here about 6 months. He was the famous French Impressionist painter, Claude Monet. The Rijksmuseum has a few of his paintings. This one they don't have because it's in a private collection. It's called Het Blauw Huis, or Les Maisons Bleues. And if you guys just take your cameras and you come a little further with me, this house on the corner is the same house here. This is the house in the very same angle at which he painted it, actually. So what you guys are looking at is the Blue House of Zaandam, while you also look at the Blue House of Zaandam. Now it looks a little different because newer buildings have been built up next to it, but a really interesting history here that the local townspeople figured out only about 11 or 12 years ago. See, as I already told you guys, all the houses in Zaandam are green, right? Yeah. Historically. So why is there a blue house in this painting? Did Monet either make it up or did he make a mistake, right? Did he make the wrong colors and he just got himself a little mixed up? You wouldn't think so, right? So a local art historian about 12 years ago went to the neighbors in that house and had a very simple question for them. Can I strip the paint off your walls outside of your house? And in total, he stripped about 56 layers of paint off the outside of this wall here. And on layer number 47, he found this exact color start to emerge.
Oh, wow.
And on average, they painted their houses, let's say, every 20 years or so, 20 to 25 years on average. So he started to do some math, some calculations, and he realized this lines up perfectly with the 1860s, the 1870s, when Monet would have lived here as well. And then the houses, they date originally back to the 1700s, and all the rest of the houses were on the water. During that time, he made a lot of paintings of the water, he made a lot of paintings of boats and windmills, but he also made a lot of paintings of houses along the water too. So after doing enough historical research, he realized the match was perfect, that Monet had actually stood right about on this spot where there used to be a little QR code. They got rid of it for some reason. And because everybody was taking photos and stuff. But this is the spot exactly where he made this painting from. And so they decided to honor that history by telling the townspeople about it. And then they actually decided to work with the homeowners here. And they decided they would paint just this half of the house blue again. Mm-hmm. The owners liked the white paint job, so they left the other half of the house that you see on the other side of the street white, so that they could enjoy their house and that the public could enjoy this history a little bit. And if you guys notice at the top of the Inn Hotel, there was also another blue house back at that building back there. The one that I took the photo of you guys. And that one is also blue on the top right corner. And they did that in 2014 after making this discovery. They repainted the top of the Inn Hotel. Again, as a little homage for the history buffs here in this town. They really appreciate their history. They like their past. And they like to work it into the fabric of the city nowadays.
So do you think these were here?
Most of these were here. These low ones were here. This one was not. This one was. And the other brick one is new. Like from the last, new from the last like 100 years. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. So there's been a lot of change. The water used to be basically right here. These were waterfront properties. Now even this land has been extended a little bit. so that they can build more buildings, more land, more people, right? So the process still goes on to this day, that they're still creating land as well in and around the cities.
And I see the turbines. I hear them way over.
Yeah, the modern ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are by the new port of Amsterdam. You guys probably see it when you come in on the train from Haarlem. So Haarlem is about, like, if you were to point it as the crow flies, like 10 miles that way, basically. So we're really close to Haarlem as well from this city.